While discussing historical torture methods, it's important to approach the topic with sensitivity and discretion. Many of these methods were incredibly cruel and inhumane. Here are some examples of torture methods used throughout history. Judas cradle. A pyramid-shaped seat with a sharpened tip. The victim would be lowered onto it, impaling them anally or vaginally, causing intense pain and often leading to infection and death. Brazen bull. A hollow brass bull statue with a door on one side. The victim would be placed inside and a fire lit underneath, slowly roasting them alive while their screams were amplified by the structure's design. The pear of anguish. A pear-shaped instrument inserted into the victim's orifices, mouth, anus, or vagina, and then expanded by turning a screw, causing severe internal damage and often resulting in death. Saw torture. The victim would be hung upside down, their legs spread apart, and then sawed in half from the groin downwards with the intent to prolong the suffering as much as possible. Flaying. The process of removing the skin from the body, often done while the victim was still alive, resulting in immense pain and frequently leading to death from shock or infection. Chinese water torture. The victim would be immobilized while drops of water were repeatedly dripped onto their forehead, causing extreme psychological torment over an extended period. Impalement. A sharpened pole would be inserted into the victim's body, often through the rectum or genitals, and then raised upright, causing a slow and agonizing death. Heretic's fork. A metal device with two prongs, one pointed upward and the other downward, inserted under the chin and sternum, used to prevent sleep by causing immense pain if the victim's head dropped. Scold's bridle. Also known as a branx, it was a metal mask with a bridle bit inserted into the mouth, often used to punish women accused of gossiping or witchcraft by preventing them from speaking. Blood eagle. A method of execution originating from Norse mythology, where the victim's back was opened up, ribs were broken, and lungs pulled out to resemble wings, causing a slow and agonizing death. Scaphism. A gruesome method where the victim was placed in a boat or hollowed-out tree trunk, force-fed milk and honey, and left to be consumed by insects and vermin as they suffered from dehydration, starvation, and exposure. Branding iron. Used to mark criminals or slaves by burning a symbol or mark onto their skin, causing excruciating pain and permanent scarring. Breaking wheel. The victim's limbs were tied to a large wooden wheel, and then the executioner would break their bones with a hammer or iron bar, often resulting in a slow and painful death. Breast ripper. A tool used to tear off a woman's breasts, often as punishment for adultery or other perceived crimes, resulting in immense pain and permanent disfigurement. Kange. A heavy wooden collar or board placed around the neck, sometimes with spikes used for public humiliation and as a form of restraint. Castor oil. While not traditionally a torture method, it was sometimes used in excess as a form of punishment, causing severe diarrhea and dehydration. Choke pear. A metal device inserted into the mouth, anus, or vagina and then expanded, causing extreme pain and often internal injuries. Head crusher. A device that compressed the skull, causing excruciating pain and often resulting in death or permanent brain damage. Iron chair. A chair with spikes or restraints, where the victim would be seated and then slowly impaled or crushed. Keel hauling. A naval punishment where the victim was dragged underwater alongside the ship, often resulting in drowning, severe injuries, or death. Lynching. Also known as death by 1,000 cuts. It involved systematically cutting off parts of the victim's body over an extended period, leading to a slow and agonizing death. Pendulum. The victim was tied down as a sharp blade swung back and forth above them, gradually lowering with each swing, often resulting in mutilation or death. Rack. A torture device used to stretch the victim's limbs, causing severe pain, dislocation, and sometimes limb detachment. Scavenger's daughter. A metal contraption that compressed the victim's body, causing extreme pain and sometimes organ damage. pau de arara, a method of torture where the victim was hung upside down with their hands and feet tied, often resulting in joint dislocation, muscle fatigue, and sometimes death. Tongue tearer, a device used to rip out the victim's tongue, causing immense pain and permanent disability. Strappado. The victim's hands would be tied behind their back, and they would be hoisted into the air by a rope, often dislocating their shoulders or causing suffocation. White room torture, a form of psychological torture where the victim is placed in a featureless white room for extended periods, leading to sensory deprivation and mental deterioration. Oubliette dungeon, a dark underground chamber where the victim would be confined, often without food, water, or light, leading to starvation, dehydration, and madness. Gibbeting human cages, iron cages in public spaces where the victim would be placed for display, often left to die from exposure, starvation, or dehydration. Spanish tickler, a weapon with sharp spikes or blades used to inflict pain and injury, often used in conjunction with other torture methods. Bamboo torture. Bamboo shoots were allowed to grow through the victim's body, causing excruciating pain and eventual death. Judas chair, a chair with a sharp pointed seat where the victim would be forced to sit, often resulting in impalement and severe internal injuries. Iron maiden, a coffin-like device with spikes on the inside, where the victim would be enclosed and impaled, causing excruciating pain and often death. Panish donkey, a wooden horse-like apparatus with a sharp edge where the victim would be forced to straddle, often leading to severe genital injuries or death. Crocodile shears, iron pincers used to mutilate the genitals or other body parts, often as punishment for sexual offenses or treason. Thumbscrew, a metal device tightened around the thumb or other fingers, causing intense pain and often permanent damage. Whirligig, a method where the victim was suspended from a rope and spun around rapidly, causing disorientation, nausea, and sometimes death. Lead sprinkler, a hollow device filled with molten lead, wax, or boiling water, which was poured onto the victim's skin, causing severe burns and excruciating pain. The wheelbarrow. The victim would be placed face down on a wheelbarrow-like structure, with their feet and hands secured and then rolled around, often resulting in broken bones, internal injuries, and sometimes death. Spanish spider, a metal frame resembling a spider with several pointed legs, where the victim would be suspended naked and their limbs stretched, causing extreme pain and sometimes dislocation or tearing of muscles and ligaments. Foot roasting. The victim's feet would be placed on a metal grate or hot coals, slowly roasting them, causing severe burns, blistering, and permanent damage. Lead coffin. The victim would be placed inside a coffin-like container filled with molten lead or other hot substances, causing suffocation, severe burns, and agonizing death. Scaffold torture. The victim would be tied or suspended from a scaffold and subjected to various forms of physical and psychological torture, including beatings, burning, or mutilation. Pillory, a wooden framework with holes for the head and hands, where the victim would be locked in a public place, exposed to ridicule, and sometimes subjected to further abuse by the crowd. Cat's paw, a metal instrument with sharp claws resembling a cat's paw, used to tear off the victim's flesh or extract their fingernails, causing intense pain and permanent disfigurement. The descriptions provided above are intended for educational purposes only, and do not condone or endorse violence, torture, or any form of human rights abuse. The portrayal of historical torture methods is meant to shed light on the darker aspects of human history, and serves as a reminder of the importance of empathy, compassion, and respect for human dignity. It's crucial to approach this topic with sensitivity and discretion, acknowledging the suffering endured by victims of such atrocities.